All right, let's get to some of these super chats here, Brian, before we get out.
I got to pull this one up from Bleed 974, and I asked, "Was this a mistake?" And he said, "No, it was not."
Did you
remember
really?
that one time we had somebody give a $500 super chat, it was by accident, and so actually we gave them some of their money back. But yeah, this one was not by accident, man. So wow, this is awesome. I appreciate you very, very much.
Holy smokes! I'll read it here. So from Bleed 974, thank you so much for the super chat. Should have $273 should have been the score. Christmas bonus for the bonus content with the extra games. You guys are amazing.
Blee, thank you so much, man.
You're amazing, Blee. Thank you very much. Thank you. That is so freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Miles Whitaker with a big super chat as well. The crowd was phenomenal. As far as my eyes could see, everyone stood the entire game. That's the report I've gotten from all the people that I know that went to the game. Like I said, my father-in-law and my son were sitting together, and my son told me, he's like, look, he goes, we were standing the entire time. He goes, TV timeouts. He goes, Papa would sit down. He goes, but as soon as the game was back on, he was back up. I was like, all right, that's my guy.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, everybody was standing up. So that is fantastic.
Crowd was great, man. I mean, it was.
I don't
know about the standing thing because I didn't pay attention to that. But like, just they were just so locked in on every play. They were so loud. And there's a lot of national people that were talking about just the environment. That's the one thing that I will give. Sort of ESPN's is kind of like tooting their own horn to a degree, but they did talk about how great the environment was on Friday night. How that being at Notre Dame, being in South Bend at that stadium, was the perfect way to kick off this new thing that we have. Like, you're going to have it on the campus of the most historic school and program in history of college football. That's where it needed to be, and so that was the only okay, we've praised Notre Dame enough.
Yeah, it's enough. All right, we'll praise the crowd. That's it.
Yeah. It's like Bill Bender said something this week, and he said that he thinks this is the game where the national people start to pay more attention to Jeremiah Love. And I'm like, isn't that ridiculous that it would take a playoff game before people nationally start recognizing how good freaking Jeremiah Love is? If they were doing their freaking jobs during the season, he'd be getting a lot more conversation. So, yeah.
I said it was going to be a coming out party for Jeremiah Love, and it's a sad state of affairs that was the case. But I still think it
shouldn't have to be.
It shouldn't have to be. But but it was. I mean, how many times have you seen that highlight of him going 98? You know what I mean? Like, it was definitely a coming out party, and he deserved
longest run in playoff history.
Correct, by a lot, actually.
Jeremiah Love, Vince, has rushed for over 100 yards now 5 times this year. He did it on 10, 12, 16, 7, and 8 carries. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, well, you get to the playoff, your yards per carry average is not going to go up. His did.
Right.
He's now at 7.4.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts. Got a super chat here from James Costanzo. Thank you very much for the super chat. Shout out to Shane Gillis, ripping Saban and the SEC on game day.
I can't see the picture, but I think this is the guy that Jimmy, who was helped us with the tailgate this weekend. So Jimmy actually bought 2 Joy slot passes, and then we had ours, and so that's why we had the 2 cars set up. We had the space in between because we actually bought that. He actually bought an extra pass, so we could set up all the food in there. So, man, huge shout out to Jimmy. If that's who it is, his name's Jimmy Costanzo. So I assume it's the same one, but appreciate you for that very much, man. But yeah, I loved it. I mean, again, he was doing it all in good fun. I mean, you could tell, but you could tell Saban was a little pissed though. Well, Saban did not take it as a joke. He was pissed. You could just tell he was not happy.
Don't say, stupid comments deserve stupid answers. That's how that works. Sorry, man.
I also loved how he was going at Curt Cignetti. He's like just ripping Curt Cignetti for being out there when the players were in the locker room, just crushing Curt Cignetti for it. He's like, Notre Dame by 1 million. I freaking loved that. That was awesome. That was absolutely awesome. I'll read this one, Vince, from Daniel Flagstad. Thank you so much for this one, Danny. He says, loved chatting with your dad. Go Irish. Daniel, we appreciate you, man, so much. But my dad had such a blast. He loves talking now. You guys, that's where I got it from, right? My dad loves talking. And like he likes talking in crowds like that. He would not like doing something like this, but I took it to another level. But my dad's one of those people, Vince, that he's never met a stranger. You know what I mean? Like, he'll meet you and just talk with. He doesn't care. where you're from, what that's just kind of who my dad is. And so that's why he loves to, like, my mom likes to serve. She likes to serve people. She likes to do things for people.
Yep.
So like those tailgates are like perfect for my parents, right? Because my dad gets to talk to people and then my mom gets to serve people. So they're both happy. And I'm so thankful to have them both. And, and to have them to put that on. I mean, it's just an incredible blessing. And I appreciate that you got a chance to speak with my dad. And I hope he behaved himself. He's listening right now. So if he didn't, you let me know, Daniel, and I'm going to give him a call and have some words with him. But I appreciate that.
That's fantastic. Michael S., thank you for the super chat, Michael. Tennessee's defense looked very slow and conventional. Your thoughts?
They look confused, but they're also, I mean, they just didn't play.
Confusion makes you slow.
You and I talked about this. They did not play well. I mean, they looked, no team looked more overwhelmed by the moment than Tennessee. Like their defensive line didn't attack. Their linebackers looked lost and confused. Ohio State wasn't like doing things that are necessarily really outside of what they've done on film in the past. They look different than what they did against Michigan, but like this is the Michigan game was an anomaly. Like they were trying to run the ball down the middle and they weren't running the ball. So weird. But Ohio State's a faster team. Guys, I keep telling you, I've said this before. 2 of the 3 best defenses in college football, 2 of the 3 fastest defenses in college football are in the North. And that's been true all year. It's Ohio State and Notre Dame. That's been true all year. So, but they were completely overwhelmed by the moment, and they looked confused and looked lost, and that's exactly where they looked slow and conventional. I mean, you're spot on. And the part of their defense that I thought was so good, the front 7 just looked very mediocre, very average. And I'm like the secondary I thought could have some trouble. That's why I thought Ohio State was going to win. I thought they'd hit a few big plays because I didn't think they could cover those receivers for a whole game. But everything they did in the first quarter, Vince, is what I thought Ohio State would do over the course of the game.
Right.
I knew Jeremiah was going to hit a couple, and Mecca was going to make some big plays, like that backside seam. That's a great ball, but it's like my dad was like, is that how they were supposed to play that defense? I said, I don't think that's what they meant to do. You know what I mean? Just like they were just lost in coverage. But yeah, I mean, Michael S., I absolutely think they looked slow. They looked, I don't know if I'd say conventional is the right word because I think there's a convention. I think conventional defenses that are really good. I think Texas is kind of a conventional defense. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
They just looked unprepared and not coached well. You know, I mean, there's a big difference in the way Tim Banks prepared his defense and the way Al Golden prepared his defense. A couple, Broyles Award finalists looked a whole lot different in the first round. Just saying. But also huge kudos to Chip Kelly and the offensive staff for getting that offensive team ready to play for Ohio State because they came out fired up and they were aggressive early in that game, Vince. Very aggressive. Very aggressive.
Just Your Ordinary Joe. Thank you for the super chat. This is for Vince's ticket on the Petty Train with his epic closing of the post-game show. Wishing IU a great basketball season. Go Irish. It was about 3:30 in the morning, and sometimes when it gets to be that late, I don't know what's coming out.
Your filter gets removed.
It does. It really does.
You've seen the real Vince comes out. I love it
before, and it is what it is. And it just kind of just flowed out at the end there as I was doing the closing. So
I loved it, Vince. Every minute of it.
All my friends that are IU fans, I love all of you, and I hope you do enjoy basketball season. We're going to continue talking about football.
I hope you enjoyed your one trip to the playoff.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just too easy. All right, Chris Hayen, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. Angela gets the big AT for the show, assisted T, so we all get to enjoy the coverage. Love the whole IB team. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it very much.
I mean, Chris is kind of hitting on something, Vince. It's like, yes, we're the face of it, right? You know, we're on here all the time, but we have families to support us.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? And your wife, let's be honest, your family had to have some serious discussions about whether or not you could not do other jobs that were paying you to come help me out.
This is true.
Where you weren't going to get paid right away. You bet on yourself and you bet on me.
Yeah.
That this is going to pay off eventually, and it has. But that's a family decision of a father of 5 young kids at the time, because Dylan was, he's a little man now, but he was barely a teenager when we first started kind of going down this road. And, my wife is incredibly supportive. Also is my photographer, which is pretty cool. She's got a bunch of photos from the game. If you watch the TV version where they show the Jaden Thomas touchdown reception from behind, she's the camera person right there to the right, shooting them. But like same thing with Trevor, he's got a wife that's super supportive. Ryan's wife was that way as well. Being a dad and a husband and doing things that we do. Sean Davis's wife also, Sean Stiers. I mean, so whether it's wives, kids, parents, in my case, it's we're very blessed, but we're the face of this all, but we all have spouses that do a lot. And, my wife does a lot more than Spring Me Tea. She also created the message board, built the message board that we use as well. So,
right.
And she's part of that IB team.
She designed the logo.
I can tell you that. She also designed that logo. And
didn't she come up with the name too?
She did.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to figure out what we're going to name the podcast. And she came up with Irish Breakdown. And I was like, oh, that's like perfect for what we're going to do.
No doubt. So, yeah. No, it's great. We did a lot of shopping today, and my 12-year-old is wrapping everything right now. That's who came into the room a little bit ago just to confirm a few things. It's like, hey, man, you do you. This is great.
Is that the one that does the ad reads too?
Yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember how old she was, so I was like, okay.
Yep.
Because the other two are teenagers now, right?
Yeah, they're 15.
Oh, my goodness.
They're 15.
I keep telling you, we need to go to the range, man. We need to get proficient.
Yeah, there's some kid that keeps calling. I'm not a fan of that.
We'll talk
situation.
About it.
I'd Benami, thank you so much for the super chat. Real MVP Friday. Riley Leonard's legs. How many drives did he save?
I mean, Iden, we talked about that during the show. I mean, like in Iden's comment came Vince at 8:30, so like we were not quite there yet. So
gotcha.
Or I think he had just joined the show and he wasn't caught up yet.
Gotcha.
But we talked about it. I mean, there's so many like those hit. When people use the word hidden yards, that's what they're talking about. Where you dump the ball off to Jadarian Price, you gain 4 yards, but what you don't realize is that's really sort of a sometimes like a 10-yard net gain because you might have lost 6 or more,
right? And
you gained 4. There was a lot of those hidden yards because of the job. Right? I mean, there's things he needed to read better. He needed to maybe take a couple more shots down the field, but that was and that's where I think the impact of Riley Leonard gets lost on so many people that analyze Notre Dame is
right.
You're just looking at the raw numbers. And you're not realizing that, okay, this guy threw for 275 yards, but he had minus 40 yards in sacks. Riley only threw for 201, but he rushed for 30 and saved you 40 yards and not losing yards. So, I mean,
exactly.
The impact is similar, and that's what Riley brings to the table. And, that's why when he is reading the defense well and is throwing the ball accurately and getting where he needs to go, this offense is unstoppable. But even in a game where he's not doing that, they're still really good because of those type of plays.
Yeah,
spot on.
And like I said, not only were his legs great, but his checkdowns, like he was going through his reads, he was doing everything that he needed to do, and because of his mobility, he was able to hit some of those checkdowns for some of those positive plays and moving the chains, making it third and manageable, third and shorts, things of that nature. So he has. We've talked about it, and so I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but he is super comfortable in this offense right now. And then his athletic ability is added on to the top of that. But he is super comfortable right now. Him and Denbrock are firing on the same page right now. And it's very clear. There was a point I remember why I was watching the all 22 and I love the end zone view. Right. And after a play, I can't even remember what the situation was, but I just remember, they completed a short pass or whatever. He immediately looks to the sideline and starts. I know he's talking to Denbrock, because he's given some hand motions about what play he wants next. You know what I mean? So like the combination of those two is so clear, because as soon as that whistle blew, he was looking over to Denbrock and he was calling for another play. And so I just think that you could just tell that they're on the same page.
Yep. A couple things here real quick from Full Life. This is not a super chat, but a question I did want to address. He says, does your photographer ever sell any photos from the game? So we're not allowed to sell those photos. Any photos we take are only for editorial purposes only. So using on shows, using on cards, using on articles, using on social media promotions, things like that. We're not allowed to sell them for profit, which I'm fine with. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I think it'd be cool if we could, but we can't. And I'm not like, it's one of those things where I wish we could do it. I think we should be allowed to do it to a degree, but it's not something that I feel strongly about that I'm like never going to complain about it. It's been the rule. I knew it was the rule coming in. It's all good. Like, cause you can kind of, I mean, it's a magazine cover and sell the magazine, but you can't sell it individually, for profit, which is, that's fine. It is what it is. So, and I mean, that's also to a degree also protects Notre Dame a little bit. I mean, you have some photo that you could then go, that maybe not the, I mean, there's just things that could happen where it's like, okay, it's just best to not allow that to happen at all.
Irish for life. Thank you so much for the super chat. Just want to say thanks for the IB tailgate. It was awesome. Vince, you were right. 5 decades of ND home games and IU fans were the worst.
Yeah.
I'm just look. That was a classic case of they have no idea what to do. Like what do I do with my hands? Like it was like
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, right. like they didn't. They had no idea how to respond or react for being in that position. Like that was. I
was watching the game. I was going back watching so I had the broadcast on. I was working on an article earlier today. And I was looked over when Riley Leonard that pick, and these two guys like hugged each other. They're like hugging each other. Like, you guys have no clue how to celebrate a big play. Not the manly high five. Like, oh, I'm so happy about the interception.
Oh, now I got to watch it. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Oh my gosh. You guys don't know what to do.
That is really funny. That is really funny.
Yeah. But thank you for that, my man. It was good to see you at the tailgate too, Paul. So appreciate you, man, very, very much. But I still say Ohio State fans are still kind of the worst, but I guess I had such a harsh feeling on it. Like, you don't deserve the right to be this way as a fan.
Yeah.
IU,
like I almost like after the fact now, like we are now removed from it. We don't really have to listen to them anymore, probably for a while. But I almost give them a little bit of a pass because they really had no idea how to react. Like, Ohio State fans have been in the limelight. They should know how to act.
The moment. That's what you do as a fan. You know what, man?
Absolutely.
I don't know what's going to happen right now.
Yes.
I'm just happy to be here. I'm going to enjoy this team.
Right.
And I'm not going to go run my mouth about how this team's overrated and this team didn't play anybody. And
just enjoy it. Enjoy the run, man. Yeah, like that's how I'm enjoying this run right now.
Yeah.
That's as a lifelong Notre Dame fan, I'm enjoying the run. I'm not going to get nasty to Georgia fans when I see them down there.
Like, that's not the heck out of Georgia's program.
100%.
If I was their fans, I'd think that they're going to beat Notre Dame too, because that's what they've done. They've never they beat Notre Dame, so
100%.
They have the right to say that. I don't think Notre Dame can beat us. What makes you say that? They never have.
Right now, after the game, no, I'm just kidding.
No, yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, look. Bama fans can talk about Notre Dame. Georgia fans can talk about Notre Dame because they've beat Notre Dame. I don't want to hear Jack from Tennessee fans. I don't want to hear Jack from Ole Miss fans. I don't want to hear Jack from LSU. Especially don't hear anything from LSU fans.
Right.
Because Notre Dame's beat you the last 2 times you've played. And the head coach you hired from us has been worse at your school than he was at Notre Dame the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But Bama fans and Georgia fans have earned the right to talk trash about Notre Dame.
Yeah. That's why it just kind of,
right.
Just kind of take it.
And until you do something about it, they're going to keep doing it. And
that's fine.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. To be honest, I'm okay with that. Like it is what it is, but I'm glad.
Bama fans on Twitter turning into a bunch of crybabies that we didn't get into the playoff with 3. Like, listen, first of all, y'all should not have won as many titles as you did because Oklahoma State should have been in the freaking. There's somebody put a tweet out the other day, which I thought was awesome. Bama fans talking about strength of schedule. Go back to 2011 and look at Oklahoma State had a higher strength of schedule than Bama. Because remember, that's back when the Big 12 was really good. Texas and Oklahoma and all those teams. They had more wins over top 25 teams. Like, their whole resume was better than Bama's. But Bama had the better loss. That was all they had. And they got to play LSU, who beat them already in the championship game. Oklahoma State's the team that should have. So y'all have been blessed with opportunities you didn't deserve. 2017, you didn't even play for the SEC championship and still made the college football playoff and won it. So I don't want to hear you crybabies talking about what you deserved and didn't deserve. If anybody should be saying Bama doesn't deserve in the playoff, it should be Bama fans, because you know the standard that your program set for college football the last 15 years.
Right.
You know what it is. You know what a championship football team looks like. You've seen a bunch of them the last 15 years. So now you're crying about a 9-3 team that got destroyed by Oklahoma to make the playoff. It's a bad look. And your 80s out there, we need more money. We need more money. Now that everyone can pay players and it's not just us and other SEC teams, we don't like this. We need more money. Stop crying. Don't lose to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. You think you got more NIL money than Vanderbilt? Vince and I have more NIL money than Vanderbilt. And they beat you. Stop crying.
Ronnie Reeves, thanks for the super chat. Brian, how will the RPO slant pass play out differently? Are you saying it will be a matter of ND shading the receivers differently against Georgia?
Well, it's not just that. It's about playing it overall differently. I mean, it's about how do you play your safeties? Are you going to have your nickel covering those guys? Or are you going to have your safeties covering those guys? They were bringing linebacker pressure, so they were kind of leaving that inside zone open a little bit and letting them catch them and then just round the ball and bring them down.
They sit underneath that.
Yeah, and a lot of those plays were happening after Notre Dame got a big lead. So, like, they were kind of giving up a little inside slant, and they would just rally to the ball, catch it, tackle it, and then just, make them run another play. So it was just like we're earlier in the game, they were bracketing those a little bit more. Linebackers jumping underneath or the safety coming down. You think of the interception. There was like literally two guys covering it, one in front, one behind, and one trailing. Or one in front, one trailing, one behind. We just played it differently. And there's going to be times that Georgia may catch Notre Dame in a blitz where they're giving up inside alignment. Because the other thing, too, is if you're playing it that way, okay, do I want to give up a glance route where if I read it correctly, I can maybe drive on the ball and break it up? Or do I want to give that inside leverage where they can maybe then hit me with a slot fade? Which one am I greater risk of? So sometimes you got to make those decisions. And a couple of them, they didn't play it real well. They were late reacting to the glance route. But, there's other things you'll do. Drop a linebacker underneath it, roll a safety down, show outside leverage and then jump it. But Al Golden said after the game, like, look, I just wasn't going to show a whole lot at that point in time. The game was over, essentially, and that's kind of where it's at. Let me get to the next one.
All good.
Do you have anything to add to that, Vince? Or?
No. I mean, that's what you take chances when you're a defensive coordinator. You take chances when you want to fire linebackers, right? I mean, that's and Al Golden's willing to take that chance because more often than not, it worked. You know what I mean? And it wasn't a case where those plays were killing you. I mean, it's where they had the most success, obviously, in the passing game. But you take those chances, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. More times it worked.
Yep.
Tyler Evans, thanks for the super chat. I never thought Joel Klatt would burn Lane Kiffin, and Lane Kiffin was quiet after that Tennessee beatdown.
Real quiet. I mean, has he even tweeted since then?
Actually, I'm going to go look. Probably not. I'm going to look
because I don't follow him on Twitter. Everybody loves to retweet him because he's such a good follow. And I'm like, maybe he should focus more on like not losing to teams that suck. Yeah, he retweeted to some kid that looks like they, I don't know, committed to him. I don't know. Has he had like an original tweet? And tweeted out is that a restaurant menu? I don't know. Tweeted out a tweet of his daughter, I guess. I don't know. Well, it's weird. Yeah, and then other than that, he hasn't tweeted anything since before the game last night. So he hasn't actually put out his own thoughts since before the game yesterday. So yeah, he's been real quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Real quiet.
My favorite thing is he, retweeted a comment from Paul Feinbaum about how the College Football Selection Committee has given us some real blockbusters. Take a bow, and that was at 2:17 p.m. yesterday before the Tennessee game. By the way,
yeah, 100%.
That's great.
Yeah.
Siggy13, thank you very much for the super chat. Wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on Golden's post-game comments about not showing more pressures at the end to stop IU since the game was in hand.
So this is what he said. I'm going to read it verbatim so we know the context. He was asked, we know you're a 60-minute type of guy. Every yard matters. What happened there at the end? How much do you take away from that? And he says, I don't. We had the game in control the whole time, so I'm not worried about the end of the game. There's things that we can learn from it. Obviously, we've got to finish better, and I've got to make some calls there. But at that point, I just didn't think continuing to show elaborate pressures in that situation was to our benefit, to be quite honest with you. I could have called a better game at the end there for the guys and helped them out. So some people have taken that as he didn't want to show things to Georgia. Guys, by the end of the fourth quarter, he's already made all the calls that Georgia's going to evaluate and care about.
Correct.
If he would have called some blitz at that moment, Georgia's not going to be like, oh, that's the one we got. It would have been the same stuff he called. He just stopped calling what he'd been calling.
Right.
And that's really what he meant. It's like, we had the game in line. We had the game won. We're just going to call our base defense and just make them go down the field and
take time off the clock.
Yeah.
Time was the biggest enemy to IU.
All year. I mean, he's been doing it all year. It's just kind of what
consistent.
He does.
He's consistent.
Yeah. But that's what he meant. He didn't mean like we're not going to show them anything. I mean, guys, we're 55 minutes into the game. He's shown Georgia everything that and we're in game 13. Like,
right.
There's not going to be surprises of like some exotic pressure that they've never seen. It's just which of the stuff we do we think is going to work best? When do we call it? Against what protections? What tendencies do we think we can find from Georgia? Just like Georgia's going to – there's nothing Georgia's going to do defensively that Notre Dame hasn't seen. That's not how game planning works.
Right.
I mean, you can call like a play here, a play there, like some reverse double pass thing. But by and large, it's about more so, okay, do we know when they like to do it? How are they going to react to it? And then can we make calls that maybe go at it? Right. And that's really what it boils down to when you're this deep into the season and you have the kind of coaching staffs that are left. Because for the most part, the teams that are in the playoff have very good coaching staffs. And whether that's coordinators, head coaches, position coaches, whatever. And it's just about finding, I know what they do. They know what we do, but you don't know when we're going to do it or how we're going to do it, what formation we're going to do it out of. That's the chess match. It's not we're going to invent 57 new pressures every week and then throw those out the next week and invent 25 more. That's more of what he meant from that comment. It just stopped calling what they had been doing.
Yep.
And my thing is, if you're going to do that, put your backups in and let them kind of play.
Right.
And then keep calling it with those guys in the game. But I don't know why you'd leave your starting defense in there and just not keep running your defense. But I guess he said it. I mean, he answered. It's annoying because I want to have Notre Dame be the number one ranked scoring defense in the country, but he doesn't care about that. He cares about these right here, right?
Yeah,
so
and at
Brian
the end of
Kelly
the day,
cares about that. Al Golden cares about that. Get those W's.
You're like my co-pilot on the petty train.
Just trying, man.
Enjoy
I just have been listening to this nonsense from ESPN all week. It's just driving me nuts.
Michael S., thank you for the super chat. How does Notre Dame current defense compare to last year's Michigan defense?
Oh, boy. Very different. I mean, that was a team that was big and physical and aggressive, and their defensive tackles were big monsters. I mean, I think Mason Graham was the smallest one of all of them, right? And, because Kenneth Grant is like 350, right? Chris Jenkins, I believe, was a bigger guy. I mean, well, maybe he's not now. He's 320, but like Mason Graham is 6'3", 320. Kenneth Grant's, I think, 340, 350. Chris Jenkins was 311. He was their other interior guy last year. They're a big, stout, physical, power defense that bases off of an odd front. Notre Dame is more based off of a 4-down, 4-2-5. Coverage structures are very different. Notre Dame plays way more man coverage. Michigan didn't blitz quite as much as Notre Dame does, and the blitzes they would bring would be a little bit different. They're more about keep everything in front of you type of defense. That's why Michigan wasn't a big sack team last year. They weren't like a big sack TFL team last year, Vince. Because they're just be physical, dominated the attack, things like that, and not so much a super disruptive team. I mean, last year, when you look at sacks, Michigan ranked 11th in the country in total sacks because they played 15 games. They ranked 28th in sacks per game. So they weren't like this huge, crazy, exotic, pressure team. They could do it when they needed to. When you look at tackles for loss last season, Vince, again, Michigan was they were 34th in the country in total tackles for loss. They were 76 in the country in tackles for loss per game. But I'd be willing to bet you that not many teams in the country had more minus like 3 yards or less. Had more plays where they held teams at 3 yards or less number of plays than Michigan did. Because some of those teams are like they got a bunch of tackles for loss, but those teams are also getting gashed because they're aggressive and they're exotic, and yeah, it worked for, these 8-9 plays, but then these other 4 or 5 plays, they cut back or they caught us in a blitz and we ripped them for a 40-yard gain. Michigan's just like, dude, we're just going to just pound you into oblivion, and just different coverage structures. There's not a whole lot similar outside of the results between the two, in my opinion, Vince. They were both outstanding defenses. They just did it very differently. I think Notre Dame has a better back seven, especially safety and corner overall. Michigan had a better D-line. Their D-line last year as a whole was really freaking good last season. That's how I'd compare. Yeah. All right. So can you hear me, Vince?
I can.
Because I just heard some talking in the background.
Oh, it's my kids. They're getting feisty. Okay. All right. Beezer 12 Washington Beer. Thanks for the super chat for the censor.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sorry for I just got fired up. I try to pride myself on not cussing when I get fired up, but
it surprised me.
Got a little bit mad.
But hey, it is what it is, man.
I do apologize.
It's called passion, Bryan.
Yeah, but you know what? You can be passionate and you can be fired up and you can still speak in a way that, if my 12-year-old niece or your 12-year-old daughter was listening, would I say something that I would find appropriate for them to listen to? And that was not.
That is fair.
And so I do apologize for that, because I know that for a fact that there's parents that drive to school and they've got their kids in the car listening to the show. And I wouldn't, if I'm going to listen to the show, I don't want to hear them using those words and things like that. So I do genuinely apologize for that. That's not who we are here. And so I violated one of my own rules. And so I do apologize for that. I appreciate the super chat. But for all you parents out there, won't happen again. I am sorry for that. We're better than that. We're better than that.
The Hook, thank you for the super chat. The biggest impact on strength of schedule is preseason rankings. I think it's also the conference that you belong to. That doesn't hurt.
Which is a lot about preseason rankings, and that's a big problem with. I talked about this last week, Vince. Like the top 10 teams in strength of schedule are all Big Ten or SEC teams. Some years that might be legitimate. This year was not, and it's even less legitimate when you think about the fact that these teams don't really play each other a whole lot, because you created these super conferences where, like it used to be prior to this year, you knew Bama was going to have a crazy strength of schedule because they were going to play the entire SEC West, which was almost always has at least 2 really good teams in it, sometimes 4. And they were always going to play Tennessee, who, for a long time was always pretty good. And then they'd play some non-conference on a neutral field against a good team. So you knew they were going to have a legitimately good schedule. So you'd give them a little benefit of doubt. That's not necessarily true this year. And because you don't play, it used to be the East that would have that. It used to be like, because where Florida was always great and Georgia was always really good and Tennessee was always really good. And then the East was always going to be, you'd always going to have to play a tough schedule, because if you were Florida, you always got to play Georgia and Tennessee, and that was always going to be a battle. And if you were Georgia, you were always going to play Tennessee, you're always going to play Florida, and that was always going to be a battle. And then Georgia would always play somebody really good in non-conference. Remember back in the day when Boise was really rolling, Georgia was one of the few teams outside of like Oregon and Washington that was willing to play Boise in their heyday. And, so they've always been a team willing to do that. But now you're not guaranteeing that because of these 16 to 18 team conferences. You're not guaranteeing that these teams are going to play tough schedules all the time. And so they don't play each other as much, which makes it harder to evaluate strength of schedule the way that you used to. And that has to be accepted and recognized and taken somehow into consideration when looking at these strength of schedules. Because some of the teams I see with like top high-ranked strength of schedules in the SEC, I'm like, that team did not play a gauntlet of a schedule. They played 2 really good teams and then nothing after that. And that's like Georgia played a monster of a schedule this year, just a monster of a schedule this year. But you know what Georgia did that Alabama and Ole Miss didn't do? They didn't lose to teams that suck.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you'd have not lost to teams that suck, you'd be in a like if Bama would have lost to Georgia but beat Vanderbilt, and also still Tennessee but beat Vanderbilt and beat Oklahoma, they'd be in the college football.
They're in, and there's nobody complaining about them being in either. Yeah,
no,
they had it all in their hands in November. That's the thing. We talked about teams having their destiny in their own hands. Alabama's destiny was in their own hands, and they messed up, and that's why they're out. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about right here, Vince, from 44T. Thank you, Bryan. My 10-year-old daughter's with me listening. She loves ND. And that's why what I said was not appropriate, because I know this. I know this.
Right.
And again, I have no problem with his 10-year-old daughter listening to me rant and go off on the SEC and ESPN. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fun. It's passionate. But when you cross the line with those type of things, like that's just like if you're of a parent want to say whatever you want around your child, that's your business. But it shouldn't be me that's introducing certain words into the dialogue. And that's what I apologize for. I really do. So 44T, you're sitting there listening with your daughter. Darling, I am so sorry. That is not a good way to express yourself. And I promise you won't hear that type of thing again.
Milton.
Did I already pull that one up? Okay.
No. No, I don't think so. ND Milton fan, thanks for the super chat. 2 more rant minutes. $1 a minute, apparently.
I think I gave a couple more here. So
yeah. It's all, I think you've fulfilled that one.
I had a pretty long rant, but yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Bronx ND fan, thanks for the super chat. Did the Notre Dame receivers get open against IU secondary and Riley Leonard miss them, or was it more about the game plan? Have our wide receivers improved?
You know, Vince, that's one thing we kind of mentioned. I think the receivers got open a little bit more than I thought watching live, but not a ton. It's just a few times that they did get open, he wasn't seeing it and wasn't getting the ball out there to him as much as he should have.
Yeah.
And so, but no, the receivers didn't play great. They were a little better than I thought they were live, but they didn't play great.
And there was also like IU secondary, the way IU was playing, they were trying to take away the passing game from the wide receivers, the deep stuff. Yeah.
Notre Dame had some stuff built in to take some shots down the field against what they expected to be a more aggressive aggressive defense.
And they didn't get
but
that.
It wasn't. But they also built in some things that allowed them to get the ball out if they did get underneath it. And that's part of what goes into a good game plan.
Yeah.
It's I'm reading the post corner. If it's not there, come down, check it, or run.
Yeah.
And that's what they didn't do. But like, no, the receivers still didn't play with enough urgency. Their top ends are still too choppy and things like that. But there was also a few more moments. Like Jordan Faison still has to close off. Once he gets outside, you got to lean back in and try to close that guy off. He's got a shot to catch that go route. I mean, his whole game is different if he runs that route better. Overall, I thought Jordan did a pretty good job route running. He struggles. He needs to learn to do a better job on closing off DBs on go routes, because he's done that multiple times here where he'll get outside and just stay outside and then let that guy get up to him. He's got to learn. That's one thing he's got to learn. But his post route that he got open on that big post at the end was a great route. Guy was playing outside leverage, Vince. He attacked him outside. Because like the reason attacking leverage is so important is because if I'm playing you a certain way, inside, outside leverage, I'm playing you that way because I'm trying to take that away with my leverage. So I'm trying to force you to go outside. So if I'm playing outside, I want to funnel you back. I want to funnel you inside because that's where my help is, right? And so on that particular play, the corner's playing the post. So he's playing off and outside because anything that's going to break in on short to intermediate, he has help. And then if the DB if the receiver goes on a post route, then he just plays the post, right? Well, what Jordan did was he leaned him outside with his stem. And then when he got to the top end, Vince, I know you saw this, but he nodded him outside, leaned him outside, and then stuck it, and then beat him on the post, and the guy was done.
I mean, he did it. The guy did a 360,
and he actually recovered pretty well.
Yeah,
but once Jordan had a step on him, like you weren't going to get to the ball. The only hope you had is that you could maybe catch him before the end zone, and he did. But that was a great route, and some of the best routes we saw were from him and Greathouse. The younger guys, I think, run better routes and part of that is because the challenge Mike Brown had is he had 4 veteran players that were taught something very different from what he taught for years, right? With Bo Collins and Jaden Harrison and Jaden Thomas and Chris Mitchell. Now, they're all coachable kids, but there's a lot of deprogramming that has to go into 4 or 5 years of what you've been taught to do something differently. Whereas Jaden Greathouse and Jordan Faison only had 1 year of that, really. And so they've been able to adjust a little bit better, which is why I think you're seeing them, run routes more effectively, which is why they tend to get more separation, which is why we say, again, they need to be targeted a little bit more. So I think that's a challenge that Mike Brown has faced this year, and he's just going to have to keep doing a better job to make sure that they're just play with more urgency. Urgency is about speed, tempo. Urgency is about understanding leverage and why leverage matters and why you attack leverage and things like that. Like, here's an easy coaching point for me. Base rule is like, there's certain things that my guys had to do unless I told them otherwise. Inside foot up, whatever, attack leverage, and your aiming point's the outside shoulder. So if he's inside of me, I'm attacking inside, but my aiming point is his outside. So my inside shoulder is going to his outside shoulder. If he's outside of me, I'm trying to attack his outside shoulder to widen him out and then get where I want to get to. If he's inside of me, I want to attack his left, so I want to get him to freeze so I can then beat him outside, or then double move him and then beat him inside that way. Those are all parts of it, and that's why. But when a guy's inside of me, like on Bo Collins' in cut on the third down he dropped Vince, guy was playing him inside and Bo just stayed outside of him.
Yeah.
Never threatened his leverage. And so that made it easier for the guy to get hands on Bo when he tried to go inside. And so that's why those things are get up and in. So how I taught that route is get up and in on him. So get up and then you're even with him, and then you can get vertical. And now I kind of got him in a three-way go. I can go here, I can go here, I can go here. But Bo stayed outside and made it easy for the DB to say, okay, if you try to come inside, I'm going to be all over you. And he was. He never threatened what he was trying to protect. And that's kind of just things that this receiving core hasn't really done a great job of for a chunk of the year. And they're that's kind of what we want to see more of. Don't read the name.
I was just going to say, could you feel the hesitation there?
Yeah.
Thanks for the super chat, though, ADN. In your opinion, how much does the hiring of Lando play a part in the increased speed of this Notre Dame team?
I mean, to a degree, it does. I mean, Lando's not taking 4.7 guys and turn them into 4.4s, right? The biggest thing that factors into this is recruiting. The biggest reason Notre Dame is increasing speed is because of Marcus Freeman and Chad Bowden and Mike Mickens recruiting better, faster players. Leonard Moore was always fast. We talked about this on film. I remember breaking him down, like, because he's so long and they play a lot of off coverage, you couldn't really see his speed at corner. He just kind of toyed with guys. So then I remember breaking. It's like, now watch him on his kick return. Watch him a receiver. And that's when you could really see this kid can fly. And so it's like there was a question posed on the message board today. And the question was, do you think that it's something along these lines? Do you think that Notre Dame is how have they been able to put this backfield together with so many, plan B guys or guys that weren't maybe highly ranked guys, et cetera, et cetera. And, are they just great at development? I was like, respectfully, I disagree with your entire premise, because I think you're assuming a lot about this backfield that's not true. That's how it used to be. You find these hidden gems and you coach them up. But Jeremiah Love was a top 100 national recruit that I ranked as a top 50 overall player, and he's proven to be so. Jadarian Price was a consensus 4-star recruit that I graded as a top 100 player, and he's proven to be so. Keidron Young was a top 100 recruit by me and other recruiting services and was a consensus 4-star recruit. Aeneas Williams was a consensus 4-star recruit that I think 2 recruiting services ranked in the top 150, and I had as a top 150 guy. These are not plan B, developmental project guys, hidden. None of these guys were hidden gems.
Yeah.
They all had impressive offer lists. These are top level recruits that Dylan McCullough and before him, Lance Taylor, because Lance Taylor is the one that initially recruited Jadarian Price. Since then, it's been all Coach McCullough. If I would say, hey, that's the guy we want, and then they went out and got him. Jeremiah Love was one of the best running backs in the country. He had $1 million offers from SEC schools in Oregon. It's just he cared about things just beyond the financial part of it, right? And Jadarian Price is a big-time, highly productive player out of Texas, was a consensus 4-star recruit. And so I think 2 of the recruiting services, Vince, had Jadarian as a top 250 recruit, which I still felt was too low. I still felt it was too low. But let me go look at his recruiting ranking. Yeah. 247 had him at number 166, ESPN had him at number 227, and Rivals had him at number 244. So now I'd say that's low. That's too low. I had him as a top 100 guy, but that's still a top 250 running back. Keidron Young, I believe on 3 had him as a top 100 player. Let's go here. Keidron Young. Let's look at his recruiting profile coming out of high school. He was ranked as a top number 79 overall player in the country by On3. Was ranked number 111 by 247. Was ranked number 127 by ESPN, and everyone had him as a 4-star player. Aeneas Williams, as I said, another guy, and I had him as a top 100 player also. Aeneas Williams was a consensus 4-star recruit that Rivals ranked as the number 150 player in the country. And I ranked him as a top 150 caliber player. So these guys are, and that's your lowest ranked guy, in my opinion, was Aeneas, who was top 150. Everybody else had his top 100 or top 50 is Jeremiah. I think what you're seeing is they identified very talented players, went out and recruited and landed very talented players. I don't think this is a hidden gem thing like what Mike Mickens has done a little bit at corner with the Benjamin Morrisons and the Leonard Moores. Now, they were high-level talents that maybe were under-recruited. These guys at running back were not. You had to beat some dudes to get some of these kids. And so I think this is a very talented running back room, a very fast. Jeremiah Love was they were talking about in the broadcast, he was a state champ in the 100-meter dash in Missouri. Leonard Moore, a fast kid out of Texas coming in. Christian Gray ran a 4.41 and a 4.42 at the Ohio State camp before his senior year, right? Like, they recruited fast players and they play fast. And it's his job to make sure that they have endurance, they have power, they have agility, they have the ability to play over a period of time, a lot of snaps, and then to maximize the speed that they already have. But he's not turning 4.7 guys into 4.4 guys. He may take a low 4.5 guy and turn him into a high to mid 4.4 guy. That's part of the strength program because now you're maximizing his speed. But it really comes down to it's recruiting. It's what Coach Freeman's doing. It's what Chad Bowden's doing. It's what those guys are doing, bringing in better level of player, right? And, you want to get faster at linebacker, recruit Drake Bowen, recruit Jayden Alsbury, recruit Jalen Sneed, recruit Kingston Villiamasa, recruit Madden Faramo, recruit Anthony Sacker, recruit Bodie Cahoon, recruit Teddy Rizak. Those guys can all run. And that's really what it comes down to. Right. And Aeneas is a kid who had 4,000 career rushing yards and over 2,000 career receiving yards in high school. Like, he was a dude. And he's your 4th highest ranked guy of those 5. Jabron Payne was the only sort of plan B type of guy. But that would not have been the case if Jabron didn't have 2 bad injuries in his last years of high school. Jabron was a borderline top 100 player as a sophomore before he had the knee injury. Devin Ford was the top 100 recruit coming out of high school, Vince.
That's true.
When he went to Penn State. So these are not hidden gem type guys. These are high-level player type guys.
Bronx ND
this is
fan.
The last one, Vince, by the way.
Okay, thanks for the super chat. How far away are we from seeing Sevillano, Mookum, Houston contribute some more? Remind me what happened to Vernon. Our D-line depth is thin.
I don't agree with that premise. Number one, nothing happened to them. Those guys are all either freshmen or redshirt freshmen.
Right.
And on a defensive line where they're playing behind much more veteran players. Notre Dame, even with all the injuries, even when Riley Mills went down, they were rotating 8 guys the entire time on the D-line.
Right.
You're talking about Mills, Cross, Rubio, and Heinisch inside. It's a strong 4-man rotation. You're talking about playing Tuihalamaka, Burnham, Oben, and Bryce Young at end, at the 2 end spots, end at Viper. You were playing 8 guys regularly, and then when one of them got hurt, then at the end of the game, they're playing Logan Thomas at the end of the game,
right?
Who came in and got a sack at the end of the game. So I don't think the depth in there is thin at all. If you lose Riley, okay, now you're where most teams are, where you've got to go with a 3-man. Most teams don't have the ability to go with a 4-man rotation the way Notre Dame does. So I don't necessarily accept the premise. Now, if Riley's out and Howard Cross is limited, then now you're in some trouble, and those guys have to play. But those guys are all going to get a chance to compete in the spring for a role next year.
Right.
When Riley's gone and Howard's gone.
They're the next wave.
Right.
They're not going to be counted on necessarily this year,
right?
Unless there's injuries. Yeah, agreed.
And Bryce Young's the only young guy playing because he was a freak. He was a top 50 national recruit coming out of high school. He's just a different cat.
Yeah.
The other young guys like Junior and Josh Burnham, they're redshirt sophomores, which means they're 3rd-year players. Donovan Heinisch is a redshirt sophomore, means he's a 3rd-year player. Those are the young guys in the rotation outside of Bryce. So it's just nothing's happened to them. They're behind really good players.
Right.
And if they stick around, they'll get their chances in the spring to go out there and compete.
Correct.
And that's going to be the key. So that's going to do it, Vince.
All right. That's going to do it for this evening's Upon Further Review. Stay tuned because there's going to be a full week of, well, not a full week because there is Christmas. But there's going to be a full week of information on the boards. There's going to be shows, obviously. Bryan, do you know what the schedule is for tomorrow just yet? I know there's going to be an IB Nation Sports Talk show at 5. Yeah. That's definitely going to happen.
Not sure yet.
Okay.
We're going to probably have a show tomorrow. I'm just not sure if it's going to be at 1. Now, we are back to when we do have afternoon shows. It will be back to 1 because all the construction stuff is done.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But I don't know yet if we're going to go at 1 tomorrow, if we're going to have another night show. I haven't decided that yet. That's why you need to have the notification bell. And I'll tweet it out and I'll put it on the board and all that kind of stuff.
Yep. You got it. So
right now I'm leaning towards an 8 o'clock show.
Okay.
So because I want to do some film breakdowns tomorrow, and
that's going to the boards, folks. Yeah. That's why you got to be a member at boards.irishbreakdown.com, because there's going to be video breakdowns and all that good stuff going up. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I can tell you this, everybody that's listening, tomorrow at 5 o'clock, it is December 23rd. And if you know what December 23rd means, it is Festivus. It's Festivus for the rest of us. And we are going to have our Festivus show on IB Nation Sports Talk. So you're going to want to tune into there, because I got a lot of grievances and they're coming out. All right.
So I kind of already apparently kicked that off.
Yeah, you did.
With I had a lot of grievances toward ESPN and some of these lazy talking heads who.
It's Festivus Eve.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you're like the family that gets to open a gift, on Christmas Eve. It's Festivus Eve. We got to open the gift of a Bryan rant. So there you go. The grievance has begun. So
one thing about the show, there will be no Christmas Day show this year.
Right. Okay.
I don't think we ever have, but
I don't think we ever have.
We are taking that day off. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So tune in tomorrow, 5 o'clock for sure. But then you got to hit that notification bell. You got to be a member of the board if you want to know when Bryan's show is going to go on. It's either going to be in the afternoon or the evening. So make sure you check it out. I know, feats of strength. You're just going to have to tune in. You're just going to have to tune in. That's all I got to say. But hey, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us for another edition of Upon Further Review. Hopefully we've got 3 more of those coming, and I'm looking forward to all 3 of them. So for Bryan, I'm Vince. We will talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and we will see you for Festivus.